throw back to our last lesson. I need at least 5 of us to come up with one key takeaway. First, I want to ask everyone in class to please come on screen.
Good evening, class. So one major thing that resonated with me in the last class was where you talked about us ensuring that we,
at least 5
like
of
for
us
every 5 years, we should
come up
acquire
with,
like a form of certificate.
one key takeaway.
I never really
First,
thought
I want to
about
ask
it. It
everyone
was
in
when I
class to
was
please
going
come
through
on
my
screen.
CV, I discovered that I hadn't even
major thing
updated it
that
in the last
resonated
like
with me in the
5,
last
7
class
years,
was
and
where
it
you
was,
talked about us
I was really
ensuring
like,
that
wow.
we,
at least 5
like
of
for
us
every
So
5 years, we should
come up
like
with,
now
like
I
a
know
form of
like okay,
certificate.
like I have to
key takeaway.
I never
ensure
really
that
thought about
minimum
it.
5
It
years
was
you
when
need
I
to
was
like
going through
build
my CV, I
yourself and
discovered
improve on
that
yourself.
I hadn't even updated it in the
Also when
last
you were
like
talking
5,
about the
7 years. Where you
competencies,
talked about
one
us,
major
I was
aspect,
really
and I
like,
think
wow.
we have problem,
For every
like
5
let me talk
years,
about
we
my
should
facilities in
now I know
communication.
like I have to.
Because sometimes even when you
Minimum
pass
5 years
message
when I was
across by
going through
mail, by
myself and
WhatsApp, by
learning
calls,
myself,
some of them will still say that I did not get your message.
one major
Initially, I
aspect
used to
that
get
I
angry,
think
but like
we have
when I
problem
started
for every
attending
5
this class,
years
like
my
you said,
facilities in
there is no excuse
communication.
for anything. You just have to do your
Because
best to
sometimes
ensure
even when
that you
you
pass
pass
your message
message
across. So
across by
if
mail,
it
by
means like
WhatsApp, by
dropping
calls,
in
some of them will
notes,
still
like
say that
entering the camp. Sometimes if we pass the message across by mail, you also do like a paper one for those ones who are, we know, who will say they don't usually get the message. So as an FM, you should be able to deliver messages that, you have the intended results, and also make sure that your clients you like try to get into their mind to understand what they want and then work towards ensuring that it is done.
Excellent. Excellent. That's fantastic. Well done. That's very good. Fellow.
Okay. So you said something about for every problem there should be a structured response in place, and you should always plan what you are going to do and do what you plan. Fine, there might be times where you might need to improvise, but when there's a structure in place, when there's a plan to follow, it is easier for you to solve that problem.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. People that have the way things should go, they have less and less of the irregularities, all of those things that come to hit you. They are fewer and fewer. Once you start having an order in place, you have less and less of those things that you expect to come at you. Okay, so that's good. All right, Prince, take it away. You're muted. Prince, you're muted if you are speaking.
Okay, sir. Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Yes, sir. In the last, what I took it home, the last lesson was that the FM skills and the competencies. Although we have, since the commencement of this class, we have been talking about communication. I learned about other things too, like strategic planning, leadership, sustainability. It is so broad. It's broad to the essence that at least at one point or another, one have to get him or herself upgraded so that all these skills will be part of somebody's daily activities. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Okay, well done, and thank you for being here. Those who have...
Sincerely, I already have testimonies, let's put it that way.
Exactly. We had someone start this program, and within the first 10 classes, she was engaged as the head of FM for a bank. And what she was doing before then was all these estates, residential estates, a supervisor and coordinator kind of role. She was employed as head of FM for a bank, and the level is not the same again. Last week I was in a mall and I saw her drive a very flashy car. I said, so this is what FM is doing now, right? So bottom line, guys, is do not take for granted the project. Don't take it for granted. Don't.
We have a lot of courses actually, but I have two that are more interesting to me, like procurement management and facility maintenance strategies. Procurement management, it exposes us to so many things about procurement. The difference between procurement and purchase. All that you need to do to abide by the ethics of procurement standard, everything that you need to succeed as an FM, in procurement. And at the same time, maintenance, facility strategic maintenance is one of the main things as an FM that really, puts you at that top, that will really make people appreciate and respect you. The essence of facility, maintenance strategy, the whole essence and objective is to save costs, is to ensure that, the operations of that organization keep running. That's the whole essence of facility operation maintenance. And in those, we have a lot of processes, the strategies to apply. Like for example, we have talked about the reactive / run to fail maintenance plan. Talk about the preventive maintenance plan and the predictive maintenance plan. So as an FM, I think for it to be top notch, for it to be at the top of your peak, and to be respected in your discipline, you need to understand the three modules that I just mentioned earlier. The reactive, some of what's equivalent or whatever that you allow to be reactive, and the kind of preventive measure you deploy in the process and everything. So for me, it has been a resourceful and expository task in Max-Migold.
So I'm going to start on my right, take away from the last class. So let's do that. Let me do that quick refresher again, because I did them at different times in the class. You have the components of a building. The component of the building has one, systems. Two, structure. Three, fabric. Four, furniture and fittings. And what? System, structure, fabric, furniture and fittings. Okay, yes. We'll bring down the systems. But there's something that I did not add. That's what we use to describe the surrounding, the sites. You can call that site or environment. Please update that, yeah? So this is what I would call your facility, yeah? Okay? Because your facility is a location where you have a building or multiple buildings that is used for a particular purpose, right? And these are the typical components that make up your facility, okay? So when we take systems, we're not breaking down again, right?
Yes.
So we talked about power generation, right? We talk about electrical. Power generation includes generators, solar, anything that has to do with power generation, to the point where the power is being fed into the building, right? Electrical is all the wiring network, the cabling, trunking, conduits, DBs, panels, and all of those, right? And then what else do we have? We have the plumbing. We have fire. Now the fire, we also call these safety systems, because a series of systems make up that safety system. And then we have the security system. This is where you have your access control, CCTV, and all of that, right? And then what have we missed now? We have the transportation, very good. This is where elevators, escalators, moving walks come in. And then you have the education, air conditioning, fantastic, good. Air conditioning system. Okay.
Right. Okay. Where were they? Where are they now? Where are they? What are their projections? What are their forecasts into the future? As facilities management, we must be able to measure, as facilities managers, pardon me, we must be able to measure where we are at every point in time. If you can't measure your performance, if you can't measure your activities, then how do you improve on it? Now I'm talking about you measuring performance. You can track that to the benchmarking processes that we must have been taught, right? Benchmarking, comparing apple for apple, considering cost, value, quality, whatever. Okay. So, for example, I can say very vividly, okay, that when I got here, my energy was X kilowatt is at a rate per kilowatt. Now I know where I am. Okay, I can tell you very vividly that when we got here, our satisfaction level from our survey was X. We are now X1 or X2, but we are going to X4. We've been able to track all this because we are able to monitor, we are able to measure our performances. So as FMs, to be successful in your industry, you must be able to measure your performances and you must be able to showcase your performances to your stakeholders. That is what gives you value. 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 Measure performance. Communicate it. Throw it in their eye. That is how you'll be successful. These are pumps. This is the cooling tower. These are HVAC components. Okay, this HVAC. This is the cooling tower that supplies the chiller. The chiller here are water-based chillers. Yes, a chiller can either be water-based or air, water-cooled or air-cooled. Okay, so here we use water because we have it in abundance there. Okay, so and it's part of I'm emphasizing it is to ensure quality of water, because if this water here is contaminated, okay, the contaminants will go into your system and you have bad indoor air quality. Okay, so this water too, we take samples to analyze. We wash this basin. That is what how you come in as facilities manager. Are you getting me? So I'm going to open it for you now to see. And anybody can come here and just take a sample and say you want to check whether you are really doing what you are supposed to do. Is it clear or not? Are you getting me? So that's part of what you do as facility manager. Come up with a strategy to ensure you have the right water composition inside of this thing. Come up with a strategy to ensure this is what taken care of, cleaned. The motors are working, the pumps are there, it's not corroding. That's where you come in as FM. Then the water harvesting that I talked about, you are standing on raised flooring. The water harvesting that we talked about in class, it happens here. If you remove all of this, excuse me, the water is being collected from here. You have kuburas underneath, ducted to the reception underground. So from here we collect all the water, we harvest them as it were. That's the right word. We harvest the water and store, then we process. All right? All right, so the chillers are in there. Okay, they are carrier chillers. Just for you to, you know, let's enter from here. So per chiller, the BFDs are there because the chillers act as the compressors, right? Okay, good. So you need to critically manage and control the energy. All right. Can you see? Very good. This VFD now is running at just 19%, 19.5%.
That one is running at almost 80.
Yeah. So if I didn't have this installed, I would have been running this pump, this line on 100%. So I don't so much loss. Yes, but now I'm saving about 80% of the energy, and you can imagine the energy consumed by all this critical equipment. 0.5%. Can you see energy management now in operation, practical operation? This is 19. This is not running at all. This one is running on 85. So much loss. 85.8%. I'm saving about 80%. Are you getting it? So if there is more demand on that machine, that one will give it to you. Be increased to 30, or you can even increase to 100. This is 19. This is not running at all. This one is running on 85. It's being controlled by this machine. It's automated. 85.8%. Another one can be running at whatever. This is 0. This one is running at 30%. Are you getting it? So if you have all this, you reduce your energy consumption very significantly. Very significantly. You are saving about 80% on this. 80%. You know what that means? If you have to run on all the time on 100. Alright, and as facility managers, your environment must be clean. It is not because I knew that you guys were coming here today that this place is looking clean. No, very significant. Any day, anytime, it must be clean. That's why you are there. You must ensure proper housekeeping. Okay? And as facility managers, good afternoon. I think you guys should throw in some fresh air here, Ola. The odor here. The machines here are turned off, have you? We are kept on here so that intermittently, so that I can throw in fresh air. So, like I was, are we together now? Like I was saying, this is the thermal efficient glass wall, right? This is one of them. You agree with me that it's quite hot out there, and you are here. Are you feeling any form of unbearable temperature? So that's what we're talking about. Are you getting it in reality now? Wow. Okay, so that's what we're talking about. And of course, I showed us this is the motion detector that works with this. This raised flooring is just it's like wood encapsulated in aluminum sheet. Yeah, it's actually wood inside, but covered with. Yeah, so it allows for part of the green features too. Space flexibility and optimization. All right. Okay, if I put on this now, this controls this will work with the daylighting. Okay, flexibility on the panel. It's the one that controls the illuminance. It senses If you work with that motion sensor and detectors, the sense, then this one will regulate it, whether it should come off full or, for energy management.
But you need to install
Good afternoon, everyone. All hear me. Also to my video and my content that I'm sharing. Exciting time for us to have this session. call everybody. I bring you the FM lunch hour every Thursday from 1 p.m. to 2 p.m. Max-Migold Limited, controlling facility management, operations and maintenance, technology, and training. With one new topic every Thursday. It's been going on for many months now. And, we're running into the 7-year anniversary of this launch hour now, so it's exciting for me to be able to keep this going. Also want to thank other faculty members who step in once in a while when I'm not available. Grateful for their inputs to professional career development of facility managers and professionals in the business environment. So by way of announcements, the FM Mastercraft Batch 24 enrollment is ongoing. The target date for closure of that enrollment is a starting point on April 7th. We hope that everyone who's been on the lineup, who's been on the wait list for the next batch, please take advantage of this one coming up in just a couple of weeks' time. We also have training offers to corporate organizations. So if you want your entire team to train in facility management, everything from strategy, facility management, operations, maintenance, everything up to the basic things you want them to do right, training, security management, and other services. We can bring to you some of these customized bespoke training to your organization and train your teams. We also offer complementary strategy sessions for corporate organizations. How facility management can help the mission to achieve its strategic objectives. So if you are interested in any of these three organizations, for instance, large enough employees, people in the property division or real estate department, please give us, contact us at our contacts, info@max-migold.com, service@max-migold.com, or chat us or call us on WhatsApp 000 080 00 220 2012. That's 080 220 2012. That's our official WhatsApp number for all inquiries and conversations. All the work. If you are interested in taking the FM Mastercraft Class 24 starting a couple of weeks, please just head to promo.max-migold.com, promo.facilityManagementCourses.com. We have two websites where you can reach us. So just go to facilityManagementCourses.com. See all of our training, but the particular page on the landing page for the FMMC enrollment is promo.facilityManagementCourses.com. That's the official page. Just click on it. Don't worry about HTTP or www. Just write promo.facilityManagementCourses.com and everything. Okay. So today we're looking at something that's very important in facility management: benchmarking and performance measurement. Every time I talk to facility managers, I get a sense of divergence between what the FM thinks he's doing and what his employer or customers think he's doing. There's always that bias that we feel about how well we are doing, which is natural. But to eliminate that bias, we need to have some kind of objective way to measure performance, something that everyone can easily agree to. So that's the basis for this conversation around benchmarking, because the whole idea is if you're measuring, you are measuring for not just for the purpose of having a record of what you are doing, the objectives, the goals you want to achieve, and how you are getting there. That's not just it, but you want to be able to continually improve, right, on what you are doing. So your measurements should generate the kind of reports that can lead to some kind of trends, some kind of pattern. And that pattern should not be haphazard. Pattern should be deliberate, intentional. There are certain, measurements that should be tending upwards. There are certain measurements or results that should be tending downwards. And there are certain measurements or results that should be staying within a mean or average range. So that's the idea. So we learned about how to measure, and then we're going to use a tool for comparing what we have measured versus what another person has measured. That's where benchmarking comes in. But the whole idea of measuring my own work and my performance, and the other person measuring his own work and his performance, and we being able to compare both measurements and performance, is because we both want to improve, we want to do better. So if there are things I am doing well, the next department, individual, group, company can learn from it. If it's something they are doing well, we, my department, group, or individual can learn from it. So that's the whole idea of benchmarking. It is a continuous improvement tool, okay, that starts with being able to have accurate measurement by all parties and being able to compare those measurements. So measurements must be comparable for them to be able to lead to certain conclusions around who is doing better in this area and how I can copy those best practices. Because if somebody is doing well in a particular area and I can copy what they're doing, then I call that the best practice. Only when or how their performance is setting the kind of a standard in the industry or being better than most peers within the same business or activity range. At the end of this session, next 50 or so minutes, you will understand the importance of benchmarking in facility management, because everything I talk about in business, I apply to facility management. It's my primary constituency. On a larger scale, it will also apply to everybody in the built environment. So whether you're an architect, a designer, engineer, consultant, construction or projects engineering, or whether you're a builder, construction expert, whatever field or even you are in an agent or doing transactions in the built environment, you definitely benefit from every session I run. So here we're talking about benchmarking, and that will lead us to something that's that makes what you measure relevant. There are some measurements that you make that may not be relevant to what you really want to improve to, right? So that's where key performance indicators come in, right? If you are measuring 10 different things, measure the rate of water use, and measure energy consumption, diesel consumption, measure people that come in and go out, and measure volume of different waste that are generated, and measure, just name it. There's so many things that we need to have measures for here and there, right? Now, by the time we finish measuring so many of those things, we need to now create some kind of metrics. So it is from those absolute measures that you organize a metric. So a metric is like a ratio that is used to transform measurements into performance rating, right? Among those metrics, there are some that are directly significant to achieving or attaining corporate objectives. Those are the ones we call the key performance indicators. So I measure many things in my operations, in my tactics, and whatever I'm doing. I generate several metrics, which are ratios from those. And metrics are supposed to help me see how my performance is going, from the things I'm measuring. But I could measure, and it doesn't tell me whether I'm doing well or not. So it doesn't, the measurements themselves in the absolute terms don't have anything to do with performance. Somebody can say, I have 200 people in my office. The next person says, I have 500 people in my office. It doesn't, there's really no difference between the two of them when it comes to real performance, right? But once you take setting metrics, start creating metrics from that. For example, I have 200 people and I spend X amount of money, and the cost of providing this class of FM service for me is 200,000 naira per person per annum, right? When the next person does its own metric by comparing the two such numbers, he says, oh, in my own case, it's 120,000 naira per person per annum, right? So that becomes a metric. Based on that metric, I can now tell, oh, it looks like I used to be very proud that my performance was very good, right? But now that I'm seeing someone else who is doing it at lesser cost, providing the same standard of care in the same kind of property that I manage, then I have to find a way to cut down my costs, which is one of the measures which would affect the metric. If I cut down my costs, my metric of cost performance will begin to go down. Now, looking at that person who is doing at 120 and I'm doing at 200, I'm using that person now as a benchmark, right? After confirming that that person is above, better than the average among our peers, that person becomes a, what we call which word am I looking for now? So best practice, exactly, that's the word I'm looking for. So I now want to learn what that person is doing to provide this same standard of care at that cost. So maybe it's buying bulk, maybe it's stocking, maybe it's whatever it is. I want to just know what he's doing so that I can begin to copy and practice so that I can move my poor practices towards his best practices. So that's how I move from measures to metrics, right? And metrics is what helps to gauge performance or rate my performance. Now, among all the things I'm rating performance about, I'm now looking for the ones that directly impact the corporate objectives. Okay, so my organization wants to have better profitability, increase profits this year by 20%. So as an FM, if I have many things I'm measuring and metrics, I take from those measurements that I need to measure, track my performance, and I need to select some of those metrics and find the ones that are key to my corporate objectives, achievement of my corporate objectives. Even if I have 15 or 12 metrics I'm monitoring amongst things I'm doing in my own department, there are a few that can be described as key, not just to my work and my department, but to the organization I'm serving, to the customer I'm serving. That's why they are called KPIs, right? So, and they are very high level consideration, but they all come out of the same set of performance measurements or metrics, okay? So I'll stress a little bit more about that as we go on. And then, being able to compare if your benchmark is not actually, we have a bit of a challenge. Initially, we used to think that FMs, the property industry were not sharing information because they were holding it as secrets. Nobody should know how much I buy diesel. Nobody should know how much I pay cleaners. Nobody should know how much my cost per square meter for this and that is because it's a secret. It is later I discovered that we actually don't have the data in a structured format that we can share. And so we don't necessarily have data that we are holding. We are not even collating the data. So benchmarking is a bit difficult because if I come up with a benchmark template and I ask 10 FM companies or 10 organizations that provide the same services, say, putting the number of people you use to manage 200 square meters, for example, how many hours it takes you to service, 200 kV generator, or how many liters of water is consumed by one person in your office block, in your retail mall, in your residential per day, per week, per month. We don't have the data. So there's going to be a lot of gap in that data, and that's the real reason. So before we can really move to that point where we have data that we can share, so that we can tap into other people's data and improve based on where we find ourselves in the range of data that have been shared by everyone, we need to actually start, putting together basic data. And I'm going to walk us through some of the things. And so today's session is, I'll try and make it as simplified as possible, but it's a bit advanced. But just hang in with me, and I'll get you to the point. Now, the whole idea of what we do for our clients, for our business, for our organization, is to move our clients and organizations from a current position where they are in the organization's strategic direction to where they should be, right? And so if there's a plan for the organization to increase marketing efforts, to increase revenue, to expand in the next 3 to 5 years, for example, I must start thinking about what that means for its physical infrastructure, right? So the buildings, the grounds, the kind of ambience, the kind of experience people should have. I start thinking about it. There's a clear difference between where we are now and what it will be like in 3, 4, 5 years' time when we have achieved the other things the organization is trying to push through. Now, I also want to make sure that for the organization to achieve what it plans to achieve in the next 3 to 5 years, I am one step ahead, providing the enabling environment, right? So there's need for maybe more vehicles or logistics contracts. I'm thinking about that. If there's need for ambience that is befitting for certain levels of expatriate, for example, to come in and set certain roles with us, I'm thinking about that. If there's need to improve well-being and health so that productivity can go up, I'm thinking about that. How can I execute? It starts with what do I understand about where we are and where we should be going in the next few years. So that's where it starts from. So continuous improvement, that is the overall objective of all that we are doing. And by the time we get from that understanding, it becomes easy to move through the necessary data for decision making, the benchmarking that can take us to where we are going. Okay. So I want to improve. That's the bottom line. How do I know that I'm not already doing well? I need to know what I am doing. When we talk about benchmarking, everybody starts thinking, let me go and find out what they are doing so that I can compare. If you don't already know what you are doing, you don't even know what to look for in what others are doing. Okay. And you don't have any basis or premise for making the proposal to change your operational process or to invest in a new technology or anything, because you really can't tell if what you are doing is optimal, below standard, or above standard compared to others. So that's where it starts from. Start by knowing what you're doing. So I introduced some of these concepts a little bit before. The metric is a standard of measurement used to quantify and assess various aspects of performance, progress, or quality. Standard of measurement, that's what the metric is. And I added additional insight that when you measure certain absolute rates, volumes, numbers, when you start trying to turn it into performance measurements, that's where it becomes metric, and that process turns them into ratios. A per B, A over B. It gives you an index or indices that you can use to track performance. A standard is an established norm or requirement that provides a consistent framework for processes, products, and services. Standards ensure quality, safety, and efficiency. by setting specific criteria that must be met. So if I am trying to improve to what, right? That's the question. Expectation is that I'm already above the minimum acceptable by law. So when you talk about standards are the norms accepted in your industry, right? Or in your organization, or in the country or jurisdiction that you are under. There is a minimum that you cannot choose to go below. That is called statutory regulation, or the bottom line. That's the baseline of all standards. It is the minimum and set by law. You can't go below that. Above this is where you now have, corporate standards, professional organizations, associations, individual standards. So you're basically establishing a norm or requirements, for your own consistent process improvements to make sure you stay above, that level you set for yourself. That's what standards are. So if we talk about compulsory standards, that's what I call regulatory or statutory standards. There are also obligatory standards that comes from professional bodies, that comes from associations, that comes from corporate organizations. You just set for yourself this high standard. We can't do below this, right? And you have to set a way to know what that standard is and how to measure what you are doing to see how it's relative to that standard. And if we have those measures from one organization or one team to the other, trying to compare them is what benchmarking is about. Process of comparing one's performance, my performance, process of product against those of leading organizations or industry standards. So those who are better than me are the ones I want to compare with, so that I can identify areas of improvement and adopt the best practices that they are adopting to improve my efficiency, quality, and competitiveness. So it's very important that I understand these basic definitions. I can't be benchmarking against someone, organization, department that I'm already better than now. And there's no way for me to know whether I'm worse or better if I don't already have certain measures and certain metrics from those measures that is I'm using to track the performance of my own team and my own operation. So how does benchmarking help? It identifies performance gaps and areas for improvements, optimizes resource allocation and cost management, key area of benchmarking, including the adoption of best practices from top performing facilities. That's why we learn. That's why we hold classes. That's why we join associations. That's why we discuss in groups, so that we can copy best practices from one another. Enhances service quality through data-driven insights. That's the whole idea of benchmarking. You cannot do benchmarking by being qualitative and descriptive. You have to find some ways to convert qualitative, semantic presentations into objective, hard facts and numbers, because that's the only way we can use them as metrics to compare one to the other. Supports continuous improvement and long-term strategic planning. How does it help you in planning and decision making? For you to have goals, what are goals really? You must have goals that are specific enough to how much of it, how well, what time it should be achieved. And these are all tied to objective quantifications that must go into it. Whether it's how much you want to spend, how much you want to earn, what kind of perception you want to have. Of course, perception is supposed to be relative because people's perception can be different, but by the time you convert that into on the scale of 1 to 10, what do you think or what do you feel? I can convert those subjective remarks or comments down to hard facts and numbers and fire with. All right, so key performance indicators. I describe key performance indicators as those metrics that contribute to strategic goals or organizational goals. They are things you measure. They are performance that leads to achievements. They are directly connected to the achievement of strategic objectives. And so they are some of the most important performance to measure. In facility management, we have two key classifications of performance measurements. We measure service level agreements. So when there's a service to perform, we have the task to be done, we have the scope of work to be implemented, we have the specifications of each of those scope items and the expected outcomes. These are all detailed in an agreement between the FM and his in-house team or staff. Those who serve within the organization, serving within the organization, and between the FM and the vendors who are vendors or even the workers who are going to employ or engage to help you deliver the service. So when expectations are defined in a service level agreement, I transfer those expectations and I use them to create specifications that go into the contract I have with my vendors, right? Now, then I must, in that agreement, I must put in certain specific performance metrics. For example, certain type of tasks must be done according to a certain schedule. So the timeliness or punctuality will be a performance measure for that service. Certain services will require a certain number of people to do it together and witness it. Then that should also be the same kind of service will require certain skills or experience. I could also put that as a performance measure. For certain activities, the cost must be curtailed or contained within a certain range. I also indicate, so I can put so many things there so that once whoever is doing that job is measuring and putting down those measures, you can use those to create, to answer to, is he doing well, is he meeting the expectation of the contract in terms of performance. Those are service level agreements. For a maintenance contract, for example, a light goes out, I say I guarantee that this light will be fixed within 3 hours, 6 hours, ACs, availability, water, drinking water, plumbing water, and other services. I have different commitments I have made that can be time bound, that could be availability or reliability related, that could be breakdown counts, that could be disruptions, all kinds of things that I want to either encourage more of or discourage, bring it down. I'll put them all in the performance measurement in that for that service. Among those service level items, there might be one or two that are KPIs that I can pick out and connect to the organization's goal. For example, the organization might have, most organizations have profitability as a strategic goal, right? And if that is the case, if I'm able to identify a cost performance in that maintenance activity and say, maybe I put there, if the contract can be performed at less than 90% of the budget, or not more than, or between 90% and 105%, then I'll give the contractor a positive score, or use that to rate the performance of that contractor. Now, I can take something like that, use it to make a KPI, because if it spends less and less and still achieve the level of quality for me, then of course it's contributing to profitability, right? There could be another, organizational strategy that has to do with productivity or health or sustainability related corporate goals. I have to find something within the performance metrics that I have set in my service level that could relate to that, then I pick that up. Now, I could have the same key performance indicator applying to cleaning, applying to security, applying to maintenance, I just have them as things that the performance is measured against. Because if the performance is measured and shows that the service provider is doing well in that area, it can be seen to be adding value or directly contributing to the achievement of a corporate objective. That becomes a key performance indicator. So things like I've talked about budget and cost control a lot because that affects productivity. There are sustainability metrics that contribute to KPI, greenhouse gas emissions, carbon footprint calculations, that you can get a lot of that information from your energy use data, from the amount of diesel you burn compared to amount of public supply of solar that you use. We can get information on how much water you use that can contribute to sustainability goals achievements, right? We can also look at reliability of your assets, because reliability has a way of connecting with productivity. If my air conditioning is available 100% of the time, and there are no complaints related to air conditioning, then I can assume safely, to some extent, that people have been productive during that period, right? If the ACs fail, 20 times in a month, and I have a downtime, the cumulative 15% of the time, I can also link that to people's productivity, because it means people are not working at the time that what should make them conducive work environments available for them have not been made available. That can be a challenge. So I connect all of those together to create the KPIs. Okay. So think about KPIs, using multiple angles, different ways to look at it. KPIs, housing cost per square foot or square meter, budget adherence, like variance to budgets, return on investment to ensure financial efficiency in facility operations, operational KPIs, uptime of equipment, maintenance response time, work order, completion rates to enhance power efficiency and service delivery. Sustainability KPI, energy, carbon footprint, waste, water, all those kind of things can come in there. So you have to be very deliberate about how you set the things to better to capture with which you're going to create the metrics that you can now sort through and pick the ones that are key to call them KPIs. And that's why, as a facility manager, you're not the one to approve your own KPIs. It has to align to corporate expectation. The organization already has a set of objectives, and then you are going to come up with some metrics that you think can align to each of those objectives, and then get management to sign off on them. So as you generate your data on an ongoing basis, you're using it to prove your contributions to those aspects of the organization's goals and strategy. Okay, so it's important that you know what the KPIs that you want to track, you know what you want to measure, that will give you the data to generate or create the metrics that you're going to select from to form the list of KPIs. And as you begin to gather those data, and that's why sometimes you see FMs, we say we've been asked to report on ABC. They don't even know why they've been asked to report on ABC. You have a management who's probably concerned that there's always a surprise diesel outage, no power. We all up to down tools because the FM could not proactively monitor and set up reorder levels and deal with diesel availability. Or the FM says, oh, I asked and nobody gave me approval to get diesel. And the management now say, you know what, from now on, start reporting on diesel use every day. The FM thinks that diesel use and the tracking of diesel use is strategic to the mission. It's not strategic. It's just because you're pedestrian, your level of maturity as an FM has not advanced to that point where you are seeing corporate strategy as something you should contribute towards. it's your nuisance factor that now led to them telling you, make a report on digital assets time every day, for example, so that we don't get surprised anymore because of what you have done fast. And you don't transition that kind of thought of thinking into KPI reason. It's not KPI. You need to go beyond the mundane day-to-day activities and really delve into the kind of data that should be gathered to contribute to corporate strategy by first understanding corporate strategy. What are we trying to achieve? What are we trying to be? What is the vision? What's the of this organization? What are the strategic objectives that we have? So that's where it starts from. It's your deep understanding of that will now help you to look into your operation and say, okay, so if the server is down, for just 1 hour, for example, in a whole week, we could lose X amount of money because most of our customers are always online trying to distribute. I know that I can now begin to track power availability and the redundancy set up for from one power source to the next power source to ensure that power is not failing the server room, because I know that that is key to the mission's profitability or to the mission's productivity and so on and so forth. Those are the kind of things I will track. I will not bother management with cleaning of the windows or how much tissue paper was put in the toilets to make sure that people were comfortable, except again, I've seen situations where there have been poor productivity, complaints about service quality and so on, and management is not concerned that people are not getting the conducive environment, the right ambience for them to be productive. Then I can now begin to track the percentage of compliance with certain critical tasks that provides that kind of reliable ambience or comfortable ambience for people to work and be productive. So you see how I do it. It's not because of me. It's not what I want as an FM. It's what the organization needs to achieve. And my being able to connect what they need to achieve, align that with what I am trying to develop, and then make sure that I can measure and report on things that are really contributing to it. Your report as an FM will now become something that management want to look forward to. When they are having a retreat, strategic retreat, to pull the FM up to come and tell us some things, give us some numbers. When they're trying to make decisions about different things, about how to hire, who to hire, where to place them, people's productivity, health and safety, they call the FM as a resource person because you're already gathering the kind of data that's helping management make decisions. They will not make decisions and tell you later. They will run decisions by you because you have done everything you can to understand where they're going, and you're generating the kind of data that shows that you understand and you're developing support or structure to help achieve all of those goals. So can be internal or external. We can copy from ourselves within the organizations that we serve. We can also interact with others in other organizations through professional bodies, through different types of activities that we participate in that helps us to engage with other facility managers from different organizations. And that also gives us the opportunity to learn from them and also share with them. But in all, some of these exchanges might just be, might not be helpful if we can't back them up with numbers. So that's why it's important that we look back at the things we measured. There should be some meters here and there to measure electricity and meter water. There should be some scales there here to weigh the refuse that they are being taken out. There should be some kind of counter. People are not in the organization. How many are they, that are in, that are not in? How many visitors come in? How much water is used, how much is used at certain time of the day and different days. Those kind of things can just give you an insight into what you are doing. And then when you go to start doing a bit more advanced work, like you are looking at the maintenance activities, you're picking up data from mean time between failure, when things break down, you record them, calculating the average time of return, fixing things, getting them back up, how long they stay, out of use because they broke down and we had to fix them. Just gathering some of this data here and there. It starts as very basic. For example, if you just start by counting how many work orders, carpentry work orders, electrical work orders, plumbing work orders are done per week, per month, and then dissecting that into which areas, which days of the week, for example, what kind of correlations can you make from those data? There's so much that you can do from very basic awareness and documentation of what you are doing. You get all that data you put together. Okay, so there are some organizations that, just looking at their public profile, you probably think, wow, this is everything. They know everything, they do everything. Of course, they may know everything, but when it comes to practice, they may not be implementing everything, right? So you may not find one ideal organization for everything you need to change or improve. It's important that you start little by little with the most difficult area in your operation. Find a way to befriend another organization that also has that overcome that kind of challenge. But don't go empty-handed. Also have something you have done well, so that when the competition is going, you have something to offer. You can't go empty-handed when it comes to benchmarking. That's why it's called benchmarking. We come together to benchmark each other. So I this morning on this issue of software, AI, and the rest, just this morning I was going through a conversation in one of our groups, and people were talking about templates, and I just looked at the comments, and it sounded like we are still practicing facility management, in the past. We're still struggling to use templates to fill out records, to use work orders on paper, to get these documents into spreadsheets and be able to generate the data. Because many people just think that we are not gathering data because we don't have the software to do so. If you don't get into the habits of putting together data, documenting things, tracking and understanding the pattern of how things are done on paper, on spreadsheets, soft copies and the rest, when the software comes to you, you'll still not be able to use it right. And when somebody puts you in an environment where Internet of Things sensors have already picked up all of these data and pull them into some kind of interface or dashboard for you, you still don't know how to make use of those data because you didn't start from being good, being process driven when your technology was still basic. So my point here is, don't wait. It's not when you have technology, not when you have software. You start learning how to have the right process or how to have track on before you start deploying software to get them done. Okay. So attendance, work orders completion, data on cost, just start driven where everything can be scanned and entered, to the point where you now have sensors that can pick up energy data and pull them in. You don't have to read data anymore. You're already used to what that data can do for you. You're really looking forward to being able to use it to make good decisions. I stressed some of these challenges of benchmarking earlier on. If you don't have data, there's no way to benchmark. So if I don't generate data, you don't generate data, you can't have benchmarking. If I do generate data, I generate data, and there's no accuracy, no level of accuracy or consistency, some kind of standardized approach to data gathering, then we really can't also benchmark, but there's no way I can compare with what you have. not speaking the same language. And then, of course, sometimes we just put things there because we like it or somebody told us to be putting it. We don't have a reason, our own reason why that data is being collated. And so we don't use it to make any decision. That's the tragedy. Okay. You know, some people just like this, oh, I like field work, I like to just direct it, do that, I like to just go market, buy materials, get things done. When it comes to documenting tasks, reporting on what you have done, you know, recording things, they don't want to. It just, you know, I don't know, mental laziness or something. So you can be busy, you can just be active, you can be so productive. I put it in inverted commas because that's what it seems from everybody looking at you. Oh, that guy is so effective, it solves all problems. When I come down to say, let me look at what you have been doing. Let me see the results. Let me see the efforts you put in. Let me look at your numbers. Because I want to be able to say you are doing well or you are not. And you don't have any data to show for it. I'll definitely score you 0. Like somebody who attended every class in my course. Attended every class was very good with responses, answering all questions, and doing everything right. And then at the end of the day, they give you an exam and you check and see it's an empty script submitted. I don't see anything you have done. All those efforts put in, it's not as if it's wasted. Or every time somebody asks, you do an assignment, you don't submit an assignment, there's no score, but you are very active doing what? There has to be some kind of evidence that you are doing well. And the only way I can decide that you are doing well is if I have a record to check you against. Okay? All right, so it is important to start from yourself. Ask yourself, what data am I gathering right now? Make a list of the things you are gathering right now. Many of you receive electricity bill. Okay, so I receive energy bill. So I know how much and how much that costs. I know how much per kilowatt hour. What else do I measure? By the time I have a list of the things that I currently have data and records for, I can now begin to add, oh, I think I can measure my water consumption or production. I think I can measure the volume of chemicals I use in the water. I think I can count the number of work orders my staff does in different areas. I think I can record how many times I'm called for a walk. I think that you now make a longer list of things that are low-hanging fruits, things that you can capture data about. Just as a start, as a beginning process, because you must have a way of collecting those internal data. Right? So it is from there we're going to look at what kind of metrics can I create out of all the data I'm gathering to see my performance. All right? It is me that I'm working on. By the time I'm now done, I don't see where I am. I don't know whether it is good performance or whether it is bad performance. I need someone else who is also, doing this, gathering data of what they are doing and rating their own performance based on the numbers and data they put together. I need that person to be able to compare his data with mine to see if his is better than mine or if mine is better. So whatever I need to learn from him, I learn from. Whatever he needs to learn from me, he learns from me. But if I don't put together the right data or generate the kind of metrics and key performance indicators, and the next person does not do that, then both of us can keep believing ourselves that we're doing well. So it starts with your baseline, starts with, what are the objectives that you want to set? Starting with your understanding of the objectives of the organization. I'm talking about strategic organizational goals now, right? And then you now begin to select key performance indicators. I talked to you about all of the metrics you can pull from the data you measure, and then you generate certain metrics, and then you pull certain metrics into what you call your key performance indicators, and begin to use those to track how closely aligned you are to organizational goals, how your performance is adding value, and how you're moving in to the direction it needs to be. So you start tracking performance metrics regularly to ensure alignment with goals. Use real-time data and analytics for informed decision-making. Generate detailed reports to identify trends and areas of improvement. And this issue of trends is very important. When performance is measured, performance improves. When performance is measured and reported, the rate of improvement accelerates. Now, according to Thomas Manson. So what that simply means is that I'm measuring, right? And if I'm measuring, I'm able to use things I measure to decide whether it is following the pattern or trend that I expect. If I want costs, if I'm measuring my cost per square foot, for example, should that be going up or down? If I decide that it should be going down, if I measure week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4, and I do that for 52 weeks, I should tell myself, if I get better from week 1 to week 52, if I got better, it means that my cost per square foot actually went down from the January to December, right? So that's exactly how I know. So that trend, I will decide what that trend is. If people call me to come and redo things, oh, you don't tell me what, you know, we'll come and redo it, and I rush to go and do it, hey, well done, you did well. You read some cleaning, and it looks like it's basically still come and clean it. If I'm counting those numbers of times, that happens to me, the frequency of that, should I want that to be increased? I want it to be going down. Of course, I want it to be going down. So because I'm counting and I'm recording on a weekly basis, I can tell whether I'm moving in the direction I want it. So trends, anything you cannot decide what the ideal trend should be, and you cannot trend, it's not a valid report. It's not something that doesn't add any value. And the trends can either be going up, coming down, or staying within a certain mean. Those are the things that helps you know that you're actually performing in the direction of expectation when it comes to maintaining that area. Okay. So performance data, measurements and metrics can help us in the area of cost a lot. Many organizations don't even know how much FM is costing them, because all the related costs to physical facilities, acquisition, operations, maintenance, disposal are not tabulated or curated in such a way that you can actually see the pattern of how they are affecting the organization's productivity, profitability, and the rest. But again, you can agree with me that if profit has to go up, expenses has to come down, isn't it? And for expenses to come down, you must track and know exactly how you are spending. If not after you have spent, you look back at the number and you're like, oops, what's going on here? I spent too much. What just happened? You're supposed to have an idea of how the spend is going, so that you can use that to compute your contribution to profitability. Because if you can't, of course, you're not adding value. Benchmarking, the whole continuous improvement concept in organizations supposed to move us towards the futuristic, forward-thinking, process-driven approach to executing or delivering on the things that we do. Because understand what you do, understand how it impacts bottom line and corporate strategies, improve on them to create better alignment and move towards better contribution to corporate strategies is what the organization wants. That's what moves the FM from a cleaner or anybody that just do basic things in the organization to somebody who contributes, who we can now describe as a strategic enabler to the organization's success. Starts with data. All right, so I think that's for today. I hope we're all able to pick something out of it. Sometimes I have a few minutes for questions, but yes, I think I still have about 4 minutes into this session. I didn't push it to the very edge. So if you do have a question, you can put it on the chat here on Zoom. Within these few minutes I have left, I can attend to you. But if you have a question and you are on our facility management training group on WhatsApp, please post it there. If you're not yet on that group, I should think we have a link to the group on the chat. Please post the link to the FM training group here. We also have a Telegram group for conversations and exchanges that we can try and participate in. And if you are on YouTube, Facebook or LinkedIn, where we are coming through live, all questions posted on those will be treated as we go on as well. Very important that we are able to stay connected, keep the exchange going. If you need anything in the area of facility management, operations and maintenance, technology deployment, energy efficiency, smart buildings, softwares, advisory services for construction, remodeling, and management, please reach out to us at Max-Migold Limited. Just send an email to service@maxmigold.com. Visit our website, maxmigold.com. Send a WhatsApp chat or message to Paul, that's myself. WhatsApp on 080-220-20122. Okay. It's important that we are able to have this solution. If you go to any social media platform, everything from Facebook to LinkedIn to Twitter or X to TikTok and all Instagram, you'll find Max-Migold very much in those spaces. Stay in touch and let's keep learning together. Thank you very much for making it to today's. And don't forget, for those still preparing for the FMaster Craft up to 24, starting in April, please head over to promo.facilitiemanagementcourses.com. That's our website, or maxmigold.com/promo. Those are the URL links to lead you straight to the same page where you can get all the details, register, and engage with us. And I know that many people have gone to our website and the price increase. I announced it for several weeks that the price is going to increase. But especially for this one starting next, we have allowed the old price of $550 and $750 to hold. So you still have clear 200,000 discount automatically on those prices on our website because you are here and you are willing to join the class in April. But with effect from the August class, those prices will become fully effective. All right, thank you so much. Look forward to seeing you again next week, Thursday. Bye-bye.